Look at this beautiful Texas sage. It's looking vibrant here under the sun. Hello garden friends, my name is Jenny and I garden in zone 9B here in the Gulf Coast area. Today I want to talk about what I've been working these past weeks, and that's soil building. I've been cutting down all the dead growth that got killed over the winter. And what I want to show you today is, what do I do with all this dead growth? What do we do with it? Well, we take it back into the soil, and taking part of this cycle where what you grow, you give back to the soil. I have expanded this bed. You can see the original bed was where you have all the green, all the weeds growing, and then in the middle I expanded it during December, and then recently I made it bigger. So I've been using my own soil to expand my garden beds, and so I want to show you how you can do that without having to go to the store and buy new soil. And this is a great time to be working on soil prepping for spring planting. Two things to consider. I live in the Gulf Coast area in a large city where, again, it's very humid, so that means that things decompose rather quickly for us here. Our ground doesn't freeze. We can garden all year round. We basically have two seasons, the warm season and the cool season. During the cool seasons, decomposition does slow down, but it still happens. And during the warm season, decomposition can accelerate rather quickly. I live in a property that's less than an acre, which means I don't have much garden real estate. So over time, I've developed 4 ways that I take care of garden waste so it doesn't go to the trash. So this video is by no means a video on soil biology. I just want to show you 4 practical ways that I recycle and reuse my garden waste to create compost and mix into my soil, which and then I will use to create new garden beds and enlarge my garden beds, and just to also revitalize and renourish my existing garden beds. So I want to start off over here with one way that most gardeners already have in their garden, and that's a compost pile. I've already removed a huge chunk of this compost, and guys, I would never advise you to start a compost pile in the middle of your garden. This was unintentional. What happened was that I wanted to build a garden bed, but I had to move it. Once I realized that the garden bed had to be moved, I just started treating it as a compost pile. You can see the layers here, and here's what I've been taking out, and this is what I've been using to fill in the gaps that were formed as I increased this garden bed. You can see this one, I need to add more compost in here to fill it in completely. So yeah, I never intended this to happen, but I'm going to show you how you can start your own garden bed here. I'm already laying down some large sticks. I've got branches that the big ones are underneath. When you're building your compost pile, you want to throw in 4 main ingredients. That's brown stuff, which is in the form of dead leaves, twigs, sticks, and then you want to add some green stuff, which can be vegetable scraps, grass clippings, fresh clippings. You also want to make sure that it gets moisture, which will be in the form of rainfall or supplemental water. And then you also want to add in some soil. It can be your native soil or any soil that you have around, because that's also going to speed it up. Here you can see my native soil, St. Charles Gumbo clay. So look at this. Now this soil, even though it's hard as a rock, and there's still life in here, and that's important, because when you're throwing it in there, all those invisible microorganisms are going to go and start to feed on this dead growth here, and then you're going to get lots of little critters like earthworms and pill bugs and sow bugs, and that's also going to help with the decomposition. So one of the disadvantages that I discovered in a compost pile is ants. So I've been treating this with diatomaceous earth, which is great on ants. It's in a healthy organic way. If you're also planning for butterflies, this will kill butterflies because it's meant to kill insects. So keep that in mind. Be careful with this stuff. My second way of building soil matter is through building these mini compost piles inside this plastic pots. And you can use all sorts of containers. So here I'm replicating what you would find in a compost pile into this plastic pot. I've already added some brown stuff underneath. You can see lots of dead growth that I've removed. And then you have here these weeds, and what these are innocuous weeds. They're basically winter weeds, which what I do is when I'm digging them out, I also want to make sure I get some soil in there, because again, that soil is going to help out. I'll just dump them in there, and I will cover this with more soil and some mulch. Mulch really helps out with decomposition. And then over time, I'm going to show you one that I already have here. Look at this. You're going to have this nice fluffy compost that you can use for your garden bed. So this has been sitting here for neglected literally for pretty much a whole season. And I have this makeshift sifter here that I've been using. If I'm adding this here to a new bed, or I'm using it to enlarge a bed, I'm not going to worry about the leaves and the twigs here. I'm just going to dump it in there. But if I'm adding it to an existing garden bed that has plants, what I will do is that I will sift this here. I will sift it. At the end, I'll just end up with nice compost, and all of this here will go to another pot that needs to get started. And that way, when I'm adding my compost into existing garden beds, it's just nice, clean compost. I won't even mix it in. I'll just layer it around the plants, and over time, the compost will integrate into the soil by itself. I don't have to do anything. I'll just walk away. The third way that I add soil matter into my garden beds, I'll just directly throw it in here. For example, I have this Fiskars bag here that still needs to be filled in. And so what I'll do is I'll just dump all this dead growth in here. And this whole garden bed here, this was once very narrow, and about 3 years ago I expanded it by just dumping all my cuttings and adding leaves, and basically I let it lie fallow for a season, and there was my new bed, my new extended large bed here. In order for it to get completely integrated into the soil, I do have to do some mixing. But you can see what I have here. This is the compost from the compost pile that I had. And here, this is what I added in around December. And then here you can see the established garden bed. And then here you can even see some decomposed granite, because this part here was part of a walkway, and I have lined these walkways with granite. Now over time it will decompose, but it will take forever. So in order for you to speed it up, you do want to make sure it's fully incorporated into your existing soil. Cover it up with some mulch. Again, walk away and just leave it there for a season. I will probably start planting this, depending on how fast it decomposes, I will start planting in this area maybe in late summer or fall. So that to me, it's like, this is just a shortcut. It's like, why even bother put it into the plastic pots when you can just directly put it into your soil? The last way, the fourth way of adding soil matter into your garden is using the chop and drop method. So for the chop and drop method, I especially like to use this established plants. I'll just chop and drop. It's like, really, seriously, just chop it up. And again, you want to chop it up into small parts because you don't want the decomposition to slow down when you have these large pieces. So I'll just be chopping it up, and I'll do that throughout the season, especially when I'm pruning a plant. Here, for example, you can see this was done throughout the whole season last year. And then if it's too unsightly for you, you can definitely cover it up with mulch, and that's something that's really important. I do buy mulch. I can't overemphasize the importance of mulch. I mulch so much in these areas, and last year I just kind of lost control of my garden. I didn't buy mulch, and now I'm suffering the consequences because I've got so much weeds growing. And if you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions or comments on how you revitalize your soil and how you add garden matter, and what are some ways that you to dispose of your yard waste without throwing it out into the landfill or in trash bags, let me know. I love to discuss with you soil. I want to thank you for going with me on this soil journey. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you can teach me something by adding in a comment there to help me build my garden soil. This video was very basic. I really wanted to focus on free ways, on ways that we don't have to spend money on using what we have. So again, thank you, and I will see you later.